Let me introduce you all to the Mazah region, a brand new Pokemon Fakemon region set in Mexico and in Central America. Now, this region is created by Subjectively, who you can find on YouTube, and there's also a beautiful looking website that we're going to be looking at today that shows you all of the Pokemon, so I'm going to link both of those down in the description below for you to check them out. Let's get straight into choosing our starter Pokemon. Now, the grass starter Pokemon is called Malucotta, and it combines a garden snail with terracotta, as you can tell in the name. But as you're going to see throughout this line, it's also got a bit of an alien extraterrestrial kind of theme in it, and the brown pottery that gives some protection to Malucotta is kind of like a space helmet as well. Expursum is the middle evolution, getting a bit bigger now. I love the kind of look that it's got, how it's kind of like folding its arms like that. And then lastly, Gastronaut, as I said, like an astronaut, the space kind of theme in there. But you can also see the legs. It's got like 6 legs, which is very interesting and does kind of look alien, especially the eyes as well. But you can see it's holding a pot there that it uses as a weapon. And Gastronaut has become a grass and ground type now. Going into the fire starter now, we have Quetzalcoatl, which is based on the Quetzalcoatl, which is a deity in Mesoamerican culture. And we're going to see a lot of these Mesoamerican references as we go throughout this dex. This looks really interesting. It looks like kind of like a snake merged with a bird, and then evolves into Quexel, which kind of looks sleepy. I think it's yawning there, I'm not sure, but we can see the arms have definitely developed now, and have got some feathers on the end of it as well. And that beak is now almost like a bit of a helmet. And then lastly, it evolves into Quetzillion, so it's now a fire and dragon type. Definitely fully formed now. We've got massive wings, it's got feet, it's got fire on the end of a tail, which looks really nice as well. And you can see that beak on the head has kind of changed to be more like a headdress kind of now, or like a helmet. And then the water starter Pokemon is actually water and psychic type straight out of the gate. It is called Porsight, and it's based on a dolphin, or kind of like the whole porpoise line. But I love the bubble that it's got around its head. Really, really interesting look there. The coloring is really nice, and we can see we've got the shiny version of all the Pokemon that you're going to see today right next to it as well, so you can check out the shinies. As well as obviously having all the information, the abilities, the Pokedex entries. All of this is displayed on one page on the website, which is super, super handy to check it all out. Porsight then evolves into Seto Echo, so it's got Echo because of echolocation that dolphins and porpoises would use. Those bubbles have now covered around the ears, kind of like headphones, which kind of all comes together to be very sound-based. And then lastly, the evolution is now more like a whale, where we've got Bathygigas. That actually has a bit of a speaker look on its head now. If you look at the bubbles, the shape of it, but also the circles as well, so keeping our sound kind of design here. But I'd love to know what starter you're going to pick. I'm going to choose the fire type starter, but let me know down in the comments which one you're going to choose. In Route 1, we have our Route 1 rodent, and this is called Pacuna, and it's based on the Agoutis, which is a rodent from Central and South America. But this Pokemon also has a lot of ties to the moon, so it's got Luna in the name. This Pokemon only evolves at night as well, but you can see the design on the back is kind of like the shape of a crescent moon, but it evolves into Laguna, and I absolutely love this one. It looks kind of like a rabbit because this is based on the moon rabbit, which is a mythological tale from the Mesoamerican times. But what I really like about it is this ear. It's got one ear flying up in the air like this, and it's because it is shaped like a crescent moon, which looks really, really nice. Then our Route 1 bird is called Renna, and it's a ground and flying type, and it kind of combines a wren but also with a roadrunner as well. Definitely has that roadrunner kind of look. The wings are really small, but the legs are quite long. It evolves into Avior, which is changed from a ground type to an electric and flying type. The wings have got a little bit bigger. It's kind of got a claw on the tip of the wings as well, which is interesting. But this has Meteor in the name. If you look at the tail, it kind of looks like a meteor contrail. And then lastly evolves into Road Raptor, which combines all of those previous themes together, but also adding a raptor theme in there as well. We can see the claws have gotten much bigger on those wings, although it doesn't really use the wings because it's still very, very fast like a Roadrunner. But then we can see the contrail of the meteor making that tail. And then our Route 1 bug is Mini Mellow. I think this looks super cute. This is based on the honeypot ant, but the little honeypot is so big it doesn't even have legs. It's just like a little ball. I think this is adorable. It evolves into Chicada, which is now based on a leafcutter ant. It's actually got legs now, which is great, but you can see that big leaf that it's holding in its mandibles is quite nice. Kind of interesting that we don't have like that traditional cocoon kind of Pokemon that we see with a lot of Route 1 bugs, which I think is good to give that a bit of a change. Our final evolution for our bug is now Noctivispa, which is a bug and duck type. It's not an ant anymore. This is actually based on the Tarantula Hawk Wasp. This is also the perfect time to show you guys the gimmick of the region, which is Mega Form, which of course we've seen before. So Noctivispa has a Mega, and when I click it, you can see it has changed. It is open opened up now. The wings have opened right up. Of course, the coloring has changed, but also the expression has kind of changed as well. Got a bit more personality in it now with the mega form. So on this website, which I have linked in the description, every time you see the mega button, you can see that it has a mega form. Then Tachapi is a pure dark type Pokemon, and this is based on the Chihuahua, but I absolutely love the coloring of this Pokemon. I think it blends together really, really well. It looks really nice. This actually has a split evolution. So the first evolution is Lupacabra, which is of course based on the Chupacabra, a mythological tale in Central and South America. This looks very big, very scary. It's got massive claws on it. Alternatively, the other evolution is Zolupine, which is now a dark and water type Pokemon, and this is based on the Awitsol, which again is another mythological beast within this area. Very, very cool design here. Again, still got those claws, still a bit of a dog look, but the main difference is the tail that it's got has got another massive claw on it as well. Next is Lilirena, which is a ghost and water type Pokemon. Now, this is based on La Llorona, which is a Hispanic tale about a woman that drowns her own children and then is consumed by grief, and she's a ghost that haunts the waters. So all of that combined together, very, very morbid tale. And you can see this Pokemon especially is very, very upset, consumed by her grief, but that is why this line is a ghost type and a water type. It evolves into Yaquina, so that theme still continuing off the very ghostly elements. We can see the dress definitely looking like a feminine kind of Pokemon, but then it changes a little bit as it becomes its third Pokemon in the evolution line, Yoranakwa. We can definitely see it's more of a ghostly element now. We've still got the blue teardrops and the blue on the face. Definitely looks a little bit more creepy now and not so much of a depressed kind of look. Then next is Rotatona, which is a ground and fairy type based on the Aztec calendar, which is kind of that round shape, and it looks like the parts within it can actually be rotated around. And then next is the Pika clone for the region, which is called Chespeka. It's an electric and fighting type Pokemon, and it's based on bats, as you can see with the wings out here, but also the big ears as well. But it is also combining themes of a wrestler, which definitely fits the Mexico kind of theme that we have here with the Mexican wrestler. And then another Pokemon which doesn't evolve is Ariamano, which is a bug and dragon type combo, and this is based on twig spiders, which I didn't even know existed until I researched for this region. Very, very interesting design there. And this Pokemon is also looking like a hand as well. Now going into our 3 fossil Pokemon for the region, and the first one is Eligoop, the rock and poison type Pokemon. And this is of course based on a woolly mammoth. This also combines elements of like back in Jurassic times when dinosaurs and other animals would get stuck and preserved in tar. So you can see that black tar kind of look all over this Pokemon's face, and you can't even see its eyes. But I just have to point out, I absolutely love the shiny for this. It almost looks like some kind of strawberry dessert. This evolves into Tartusk, which has now got that definitely woolly mammoth kind of look. It definitely looks a bit woollier than the pre-evolution, and the tusks are massive now. It even has like a bit of a caveman bone in the top of its head, which is really interesting. But again, cannot see its eyes because it's just completely covered in that thick tar. Our second fossil is Chixolob, which is a rock and fire type Pokemon. And this one doesn't evolve, so I kind of see it like the Aerodactyl of Kanto. But this is actually based on the meteor that impacted and destroyed so many dinosaurs. But I absolutely love this. It almost looks like a missile, but we can definitely see it's got the meteor, the fire coming out of it. But it's got like a target in its face, and you can definitely see like it's almost like a shark head maybe. It's like very pointed and rocky, and it's almost got like a bit of a jaw here as well. And then our third fossil Pokemon is Charcople, which is a rock and fairy type Pokemon. This is based on ancient prehistoric sharks like the Stethecanthus, but this has a massive pearl in the top of its head, which I think is really, really interesting. That kind of rainbow look, and you can see it coming out of the jaw. And then it evolves into Geocoprion, which is now also based on the Helicoprion, which has that strange, sharp, spiky jaw look, as we can see here in Geocoprion as well, but still keeps that very colorful look in the jaw, but on the tip of the nose as well. Zaya, which is a pure grass type Pokemon. This one kind of reminds me of Tandemaus because there's 2 of them together, but these are actually conjoined by this middle leaf here. It evolves into Zusk, and it kind of looks like a corn version of an Executor. Instead of having the 3 eggs, you've got the 3 corn kernels, all with their own personalities as well. But this actually has a split evolution now. So the first one is Mazement, so it's now looking like a full corn husk. But alternatively, the other final evolution is Blazier, and as you can see, they are all burnt now. It's become a dark and fire type rather than the pure grass type that the rest of the line had. It almost looks like the kernels have been popped like popcorn now. Now going into our first Marzian form Pokemon. Of course, we have to have a Marzian Maractus when we've got a Mexico-based region. Now, instead of looking like a cactus, it looks like a lot of chilies here, especially in their head. And then we have our Marzian Mudbray, which looks so happy. I love its expression. Of course, based on a pinata. We can see that with the coloring and stuff that it's got there as well. This actually has a different evolution now in Mud's Mache, so we can see the pinata look. It's got like the pinata tail, the coloring, especially on the hooves here. And then our Marzian Meowth, I think, is really, really cool. This is actually based on the Aztec Jaguar Warriors. Definitely looks like some kind of jungle cat here. And then, of course, evolving into Marzian Persian. Still got that Jaguar kind of look, but almost looks like it's got a bit of a helmet over the top of its head. And both the Persian and the Meowth are pure fighting types now, which makes sense when it's based off an Aztec Jaguar Warrior. Next, Gohilla is a pure poison type Pokemon. This is based on the Gila monster. It is standing on its tail to make itself appear larger, which I think is really interesting. It's a pure poison type, but it does have the Mega button, and when it becomes Mega, it is a poison and electric type. So you can see it's not using its tail anymore. It's standing on its feet, but also that massive tongue has come out. It looks like it's got ice shards on its back here, rather than the black rocky look that it had before. Then is Bolo, which is a pure steel type Pokemon. This is based on an armadillo. You can see that massive hardened shell that it's got. This is based on the Pokeball, and the shiny version is like based on the Premier Ball. And its evolution, Jupadillo, looks like a Great Ball, and its shiny version is a Master Ball. Fantastic. I love it when Fakemon artists make like a Pokeball design on their Pokemon. I think it looks really, really cool. Then next is Crocrozum, which actually has two different forms. It doesn't evolve, but this is the frozen form. This is an ice and poison type, and this is based on a wood frog, which is a frog that actually freezes during winter, but is able to survive as it gets thawed out in the spring. And we can change its form to its thawed form, which is a pure poison type now, not the poison and ice. But I love its little mushroom. It's like its dual-wielded mushroom that it's got. Then next is our Marzian Rosella, which is actually grass and ghost type now. It definitely has that kind of almost like a bit of a gothic look here, but as it evolves into Roserade, it definitely has that Sugar Skull, Day of the Dead kind of look, which I think looks really, really nice, and I think fits Roserade quite well. Next is Frizzell, which is a dragon and ice type. Now, this doesn't evolve, but it does have a counterpart in Zarcoil, which is a dragon and fire type. So both of these Pokemon, this one kind of looks like it's expelling heat, and this one is expelling cold air as well. Suchip is a pure dragon type Pokemon, of course, is based on a crocodile, but I love its expression. It looks like a little chunky boy. It's quite small and pudgy for a crocodile rather than being very long. And it evolves into Suchoba, which is now a dragon and poison type Pokemon. It actually looks quite different. This is based on Silpaxli, which in Aztec mythology is a giant crocodile which has numerous jaws across its entire body, which is why the middle of Suchoba here looks like it's got a jaw opening up, which is a very, very interesting inspiration for a Pokemon. We then have Macrabra, which is a Pokemon that doesn't evolve, and this is actually based on the Aztec death whistles, which is a whistle that if you blow into it sounds like a person screaming. Which is very, very morbid, but then it's also based on like a hermit crab as well. So two very different themes here for our ghost and bug type. And then descended, normal and flying type, obviously an evolution for our Dunsparce. What I think is really interesting, this is called the Enigma Pokemon, and it's kind of shaped like a question mark as well. Then we have Zabalbat, which is a steel and dark type Pokemon. It looks like it's wielding some blades on the end of chains here, which is a really cool design. It also has Zabalbat in the name, which is the name of the Mayan underworld, but this is based on Camazotz, which is the Mayan bat god. Chroman is a psychic and flying type Pokemon, and it's based on the Corvid families, like your magpies and crows and ravens. And we can see it's also got a crystal ball in its beak as well, which is also a little nod to magpies and the Corvid family liking shiny objects. So this is found a shiny object being a crystal ball. It evolves into Clairvoyant based on your clairvoyance, as you might see using crystal balls, which makes sense for this line. The crystal ball is now within its chest, and it's also got little crystal balls on the side, almost looking like those little round glasses that old ladies might wear, or like a clairvoyant might wear. And then lastly evolves into Cormadam. Quite a different look here. It's definitely looking a little bit more elegant. I think this sort of look with like the feather coming up here with the crystal ball is quite elegant, but I do like that it has two different tails. Then next is Burbrawl, which is a fighting and flying type, and this is based on a hummingbird, so very, very little. And in Aztec mythology, they believed hummingbirds were reincarnated warriors. So really cool that this is a fighting type Pokemon. It evolves into into Humbeat, which is kind of a bit of a different look now. And that's because apparently hummingbirds, if they exert all of their energy, go into a bit of a hibernation. So this Humbeat is kind of like the hibernating one. The beak has even become like floppy now. This Pokemon is exhausted. It's not flying anymore, but it has woken up now as it evolves into Hummy-Pummel. It is now a fighting and fairy type Pokemon. You can see that beak is straightened up again. It's flying again. But what I love about this is that its tail is based on the Makuhuitl, which is an old Aztec weapon. Then next is Banana, which is a water and grass type Pokemon, of course based on a banana, but it's also based on a fish as well. It looks quite angry here. Banana will haunt the dreams of those of you who aren't subscribed. Go subscribe. And Banana actually has a split evolution. So the first one is Nanahi, which is based on like a yellowfin tuna, like it has the ahi in its name. Still based on our Banana, of course. But the alternative is Potassapod, which is now more based on like a squid or an octopus. It's actually poison and grass type now. But you can see this is like our rotten Banana compared to like ours. It's still kind of rotten on the sides, I guess. Then we actually have a new evolution for Tropius. And I think Tropius is such an underrated Pokemon. I would love if it actually got an evolution in a future generation. But here we have Titanotrope, which is a pure grass type Pokemon, but this is now based on a Sauropod, so it's actually lost the flying type. To evolve this Pokemon, you have to make sure that Tropius has no flying moves. Then next we have a Marzian form, which is Marzian Nosepass. Not a big fan of Nosepass, to be honest, but I love its evolution, which I'll show you in a minute. This is a rock and fighting type, but this is based on the Olmec heads, but I love its evolution in Nose Punch. I'm not a fan of Probopass at all, one of my least favorite Pokemon in existence, but Nose Punch is so much better. But I also love the like floating arm design that it's got as well. Then next we have Beaky, which is a steel and flying type. Looks like a cute little chick, but I love the hard hat that it's got on its head as well. Now its evolution is Beecraft, so it makes sense that the pre-evolution had a hard hat. We can see that we've got a hammerhead here, but we've also got nails as the tail. But we also have a male and a female form here. So one form with a hammer and nails, the other form has a saw on its head. Now these are based on hornbills, which definitely has that kind of shape of its head there. Then next we have Atalanka, which is a pure normal type Pokemon and doesn't evolve. It's based on a monkey, of course, but I love the giant like palm tree hat, but it's actually got a big sugar cane here that it uses for fishing, so that's why it is the fisher Pokemon has angler in the names. Then next we have Marzian Crabrawler, which is a pure ground type now, and this is actually based on a coconut crab. You can see it's got quite long limbs, but it has a new evolution now in Crustang, which is now a ground and steel type Pokemon. Definitely looks kind of metallic. The pincers actually look like wrenches, but that's because it actually has like Mustang in the name, which gives it steel type, and definitely looks a little bit more robotic in a way. Next we have Cafe Caracha, which is a bug and electric type, and this is actually based on a coffee bean, or more so like the Mexican jumping bean as well, which actually has moth lava inside of it. But I love its evolution in Flitjitter. This is a bug and electric type, and this definitely looks like it is over caffeinated. The swirly kind of eyes that it's got, and even just having jitter in its name from having too much coffee from the coffee bean Pokemon we had just earlier. Then we have a Marzian Vanillite form, and this is looking a lot like an ice cream, but it's more so based on Raspados, which is a Mexican shaved ice dessert. Of course, evolves into our Marzian Vanillish, getting a little bit bigger now. And then, of course, our Vanillux is like our double scooped here for our dessert. And then next we have Kanogan, which is a pure rock type Pokemon, and this whole line are based on Mesoamerican obsidian weaponry. So this one is based on an obsidian knife. Then its evolution, Kahatchit, is based on an obsidian axe. Very cool. It doesn't have any arms, but it does have large legs. And then its final evolution is Makwahurt, which is now a rock and duck type Pokemon actually. And this weapon on its face is of course based on our Makuhuitl, which we saw earlier in the hummingbird Pokemon as well. But you can see it's got massive spears and sharp edges for its arm as well. Next we have two evolutions for this region. First is Gustion, the flying type evolution. Love the cloud look around it, and I absolutely love the swirly tail that it has. But the other evolution is Terrion, which is a pure ground type Pokemon, and it's very muddy look. The long ears look like they're dipped in mud as well, and it's got a couple of fangs, which is interesting. We don't normally see those sorts of fangs on evolutions. Now we're going into the pseudo legendary for the region, which is called Zolsmall, which actually combines an axolotl with a dog together, which is a really unusual combination, but it actually makes sense because the Aztec deity Xolotl is actually giving the name to the axolotl, and Xolotl is based on a dog. And I think this one looks really cute. It is a pure water type Pokemon. The massive tongue coming out I think is adorable, like a puppy dog. It evolves into Amphibark, which is now a water and fire type Pokemon. Definitely got that sort of dog behavior, but with the axolotl kind of look. This is definitely giving me Stitch from Lilo and Stitch vibes. And then its final evolution is Perazotl, which is still that water and fire type, but really interesting look here. I absolutely love the look of this Pokemon. Interesting, that kind of like statue kind of look with the tongue sticking out between the teeth with the massive fangs, but then has massive like feathery looks for its ears and its tail as well. Now the Mazah region actually has 10 legendary Pokemon, but they're kind of all grouped together, so I'll show you as we go. But our first one, Regiwood, is obviously another Regi legendary, so this is actually a grass type Regi. Massive logs for arms, and is quite thin overall, but still has like the lights on its face for our Regis. And then the second Regi that we have is Regibrute, our fighting type Regi. And then we've got one more. Our third one is Regi Eternal, which is our fairy type legendary. I really like that the lights on this one are covering the band that is circling like this orb in the middle. And then next are the 4 legendary siren Pokemon. So these are all grouped together. So these are based off sirens or like mermaids. So first is Melamuse, which is our water and grass type. And all of these are inspired by some kind of music as well. So Melamuse is based on pop music. The next one is Melancholy, which is a water and dark type. And this is inspired by sad, slow music. And that's because this is actually grieving for the corals and the reefs of the ocean. Then next is Melamorda, which is actually just a pure water type. They're all water something, but Melamorda is just a pure water type Pokemon. This almost looks like a manta ray with its large, I guess the dress, I guess here. And this one is inspired by smooth jazz music. And then our last of the legendary silence is Melumist, which is a water and ice type. But I think this is my favorite of all of these legendary sirens. I like the sharp edges that it's got, but that's because this is influenced by metal and punk music. Maybe that's why it's my favorite. Then next we have what's called the legendary duo. So the first one is Hylamos, which is an ice and poison type Pokemon, and kind of has a bunch of different inspirations coming in to make this very unique looking Pokemon. So it's kind of got like the Zalotl face with the fangs coming out, but it's also got inspirations from the wood frog, which we saw earlier, which is the frog that can be frozen, hence its ice typing. And then also has Gila Monster inspirations as well, which also give its poison typing. So kind of a combination of a bunch of different inspirations that we've seen for other Pokemon within this region. And the other from this legendary duo is Maripone, which is a bug and fighting type. So again, one that has a lot of different inspirations. We can definitely see the butterfly inspirations with the wings, but also the antenna as well. But it's also inspired by like locusts and praying mantis. There's a lot of other insects as well. It's got armor over its arms and over its head, making like a helmet as well. And then our last, sort of like our main legendary, our Mewtwo of the region, if you will, is Ellaramandra. It is not part of any combination. Dragon and psychic type, and this looks amazing. This Pokemon is known for its beauty, and this Pokemon apparently looks completely different. And then like a snake, it shedded its skin. So you can see the shedding, the unraveling, the unwrapping all along this Pokemon here to give it a completely brand new look. I have loved going through this region, and I want to know what your favorites are for this, so make sure you comment them down below. My favorite Pokemon are Tachapi, Jupadello, Titanotrope, and Peroxetl. But there are so many more Pokemon to see on Subjectively's YouTube, so go and check them out to see the rest of this region. If you enjoy Fakemon videos, check out my Fakemon playlist with lots more to go through, or check out what YouTube thinks you will like. Don't forget to subscribe as well. Cheers.